Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. As we're kind of letting people join in, I'll quickly do an introduction. My name is Nora Johnson. I'm a special projects editor here at Ratchet and Wrench. And today you all hopped on for a webinar sponsored by 360 Payments and ShopBoss. Title of the webinar is Inside the Shop, 3 Ways Integrated Technology Helps Increase Revenue. So we're kind of doing it a panel style this time, which is great. And the panel includes Kevin Robinson over at ShopBoss, Jesse Mada at 360 Payments, and then shop owner Kurt Kennedy. So before we kind of jump over to them, I just want to point out a few features. At any time throughout the webinar, feel free to use the Q&A feature as well as chat to send over any questions. They're going to do a Q&A at the end, at the last 15 minutes or so. We're also trying out the poll feature right now through this webinar. So if you have a question that pops up on your screen, just answer it and we'll be able to kind of learn from that of what they kind of want to talk about, which will be cool. And last thing I want to note is that this webinar is recorded. So if you have to hop off at any moment, don't worry. We'll have it housed on ratchetandwrench.com later today or early tomorrow. With that, I'll kind of send it over to the panel and we can get started.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Nora. Thanks everybody for jumping on today. As Nora had said, we have kind of the expert panel. I'm Kevin, general manager over at ShopBoss, and I'll be kind of doing a little bit more of the moderating today, kind of taking us through some of the questions and some of the topics that we really want to dive into. We also have Jesse Mada, who oversees all of the partner relations for 360 Payments. They are a partner of ours as well. Some of you that may or may not be ShopBoss customers probably use some of the functionality there. And great news is we're going to be talking about some of the payment processing integrations that have happened within the SMS and just kind of in general aftermarket side of things. So a little bit of content that we'll have towards that. And then we also have Kurt Kennedy, who's the owner of Kennedy Auto Solutions in Texas. He is greatly joined us, a very good subject matter expert when it comes to shop management and all the different integrations that take place and a lot of the shop efficiency stuff. So really want to thank these guys for jumping on today. As Nora had mentioned, we're going to be doing a few polls as we go along. We have about 60 minutes, so an hour slated for the primary conversation between the 3 of us. And then we'll try and end 10, 15 minutes early, take some Q&A, answer some questions that come through Zoom as we go through the process. And then at the end as well, we have, just a few links that you can go to get more information if you're looking for that. So I'll make sure to call reference to each one of those things as we go along here. So without further ado, let me go ahead and jump into it. And kind of the first thing that I want to do is do a little bit of a thought starter poll just to kind of get things moving a little bit and start some conversation. So I'm going to launch this in Zoom. And the #1 poll is, in this case, what percentage of your shop software is actually integrated? So I'm gonna go ahead and launch that. You'll see that pop up on your screen here shortly. Options here, 75% or more, 50%, 25%, 10% or less. And really this is all about the different partners you're using, integrated into, in this case, primarily your shop management software or whatever POS system that you're using to actually run your tickets and your ROs at your shop. So let's give about 10 more seconds here to let everybody, take a crack at answering this, and we'll come right back around to it. Okay, let's go ahead and close it out here. So I'm gonna end the poll, and this will be kind of our first conversation that we start here, and I'll go ahead and share the results with everyone too, because I think that it's not necessarily surprising. I've done this poll a few different times as well, and typically that 50% seems to be just because people are like, well, what do you consider integrated, right? What actually communicates? Is it a one-way integration? Is it a two-way integration? And with that, now that Jesse and Kurt have seen those specific examples and those results from the poll, the first thing that I want to kind of take out there, and maybe we'll start with Kurt being in the shop itself and kind of the voice of the shop. Talk, your specific use case. What percentage of your shop's technology really connects, and where do you really find those efficiencies?
Yeah, so when we first started out, we were probably 50% software connected and integrated. As we kind of grew and got busier, obviously efficiency plays a big part of a shop and workflow and making money, we found ourselves wanting to connect more and integrate more. So now we're about 90 to 95% connected with the softwares that we do use. And that was kind of intentional to make the shop flow a lot easier, make communication with customers a lot easier, payment processing just seamless. We don't have to think about it. And that's definitely helped with the workflow and the efficiency of the whole business in general, not just out in the shop.
Yeah, and I'm interested to know maybe from Jesse's perspective as, being 360 Payments that works with, a buffet of different POS and SMS providers. What do you see from that perspective? I mean, obviously payment processing has to be integrated, but what's the typical use case with the shops that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd say out of all of our shop clients, I'd say almost 95% of them are integrated to some shop management system. It just streamlines the whole process. If you can have one system to go to run your entire business, it just makes everything easier. So on the payment processing side of things, you're already integrated for, DBI and working on tickets and ordering parts and all that kind of stuff. Coming to the end of the process where you need to get paid, if you're running back and forth to a terminal and having to take their credit card, it's just a clunky process. So having a customer facing terminal, digital signatures, all of that stuff right into your POS, streamlines it, makes it easier, and makes you look as a shop owner a lot more professional to your customer.
That's a great point. And I'm a little curious from Kurt's perspective, going 50% and really scaling up. What did that process look like in terms of, did you have to just go through a bunch of different providers? Did you have to do a bunch of demos? Like, how did that work where you could get to a point where you actually felt comfortable working with, all these different sort of best in class or best in breeds?
Yeah, there's a lot of softwares out there, from SMSs to payments to inspections to CRMs, and a lot of it's just kind of doing some research, doing some demos, like you said, figuring out what works with each other as well as people say it does, and just trying that out for yourself. But also more importantly is making sure that the people in the business use it, because if it's not used, you don't have buy-in from everybody, it's kind of worthless at that point. So finding something that everybody's comfortable with, getting that buy-in is huge as well. But yeah, just kind of trial and error. And everybody's going to be different. There's different softwares for every shop that's going to fit better for them, different things like that. So trial and error, but once you get it figured out, it is a huge time saver and boosts the efficiency immensely. So
I think that's going to be a hidden thread kind of throughout this whole conversation, is sort of the internal process side of things. Like, certainly we're being very explicit about the technology, the software, but you're exactly right. From the adoption standpoint, if people don't use it, I heard this about CRM all the time, right?
Yeah.
Sort of garbage in, garbage out. Like,
exactly.
If you're going to adopt it, you're going to have success. But in the end, if it just sits there, it's, kind of this pretty thing on the mantle that doesn't get any sort of love. So it's a really interesting point. And to sort of segue into it, Jesse, maybe this is a good question to sort of start you off on, since we're talking about, the different connection points, how valuable those are within the shop itself. You being a payment processor, obviously driving a lot of efficiency. You talked about, service advisors and techs, sort of being able to access things from all over the place. But, what other of those types of connections really are driving that efficiency with the customers that you work with?
Yeah, the integrated payments, just having that be smooth, and really the goal is for the payments to be an afterthought. You're dealing with your customer, working through all the different, touch points that you have on, the job, and the payment should just be part of the end of the process. You shouldn't even notice it. So it should be like electricity. You just do it, it works, and you don't have to think about it. So having it, integrated to the shop management system, like I said, with the terminal, having it, customer facing, digital signature on there, it prints on the work order, and then you just have that one piece of paper. There's no stapling receipts. There's no saving, running back and forth, trying to get signatures. And you're just talking with your customer, building a relationship with them, and you just hand them that one piece of paper with all the work, their digital signature, the receipt information already on there. So that those types of things, it just makes it so much easier for a shop just to have that efficient workflow. And it's a lot easier to train your people that way as well. So it's, the software does things for you, and that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to direct you, kind of workflow through what you're doing, and the payment processing being added on to the end of that. It should, be seamless.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I don't want to bury the lead here. I mean, Kurt, you guys work with 360. You have a great relationship there as well. And maybe a two-part question. Number one being, what have you seen internally in terms of your specific people at the shop, using the text to pay feature or just sort of payment? And then the second piece of that is, even outside of payment processing, parts integration, DVI. These are all things that are sort of top of mind, I think, in the market right now. So how does that affect you guys internally?
Yeah. So as far as the payments, like Jesse said, it's, that's the last part of the piece. The less we have to think about and try to remember, the better. There's enough moving parts in a shop trying to get that to run every day. And so with 360 payments and the text to pay, especially through ShopBoss, it makes it incredibly easy. Our customers, actually, we get comments every day, every week that people, hey, that's a cool system. I've never seen that before. It's super easy. They just literally click the link on their phone, check out like they're, making an Amazon purchase or whatever they're doing. And we get the notification. It's super easy. Customers love it. So it's a must have. You got to have it. So.
Absolutely. And then outside of payments, even, I mean, you and I have specifically talked about the importance of vehicle inspections, recently. We've talked about parts integrations. We've talked about labor guides. I mean,
absolutely.
Even outside of payments, what are some of those things that are top of mind for you and your folks?
Yeah. So especially one of the kind of biggest time sucks of part person or service advisor is making estimates, trying to track down labor times, trying to track down the right parts, find a diagram, make sure it is the right part the technician's talking about. So having that integration with, Motor or ProDemand or whoever you have integrated with your SMS system, that gives you parts, that gives you labor. You can see diagrams, you can see everything right there. Then the parts integration, one click, the parts on the ticket, you have the labor matrix. You don't have to worry about pricing. It's already done for you. So if you have that stuff integrated, it takes a 15-minute estimate down to 3 minutes. And that's a huge time saving. If you're doing 5, 10, 15 tickets a day, you just saved yourself a couple hours, and that's huge. So absolutely.
Definitely common theme for, I think every piece of literature that I've seen related to SMS, like over the last, year, has always been about efficiency. Everybody wants to know, how do I save time? And that's even just, that's not even integration. That's like, how many clicks do I need to make within my SMS system or within my POS system in order to, actually get a function going? So it's a great point. So kind of the last piece, this number one sort of key piece that we have, which is really what's going on internally, in the shop, the voice of the shop. Kurt, you're in a interesting position because 90% and above in terms of a lot of our stuff talks to each other, but some of the folks on the webinar right now, 50% and below, they're probably putting a lot of manual processes in place to overcome some of those integration challenges. And just how did you guys get past that with your personnel internally? And what would you give as advice to some people that are trying to get that scaled up at their operation?
Yeah. So the biggest thing I would say is it's not nearly as challenging or as hard as you think the jump is going to be. It seems like a lot of moving pieces, a lot of stuff at once, but that's the best part of the integration is all that stuff happens behind the scenes. You still just have to do the one click, and then everything being integrated makes that same change or makes that tweak or updates the customer when you click that button automatically. So, it's just get those demos, get some information on it, try it out. You'll find that it's very easy and not a huge learning curve. I thought it was going to be just a massive undertaking to get my guys and my staff to kind of follow these integrations, but they actually, once I demoed it to them, showed it to them, they love it and they are all for it. So it was kind of opposite of what I thought was going to happen, which was awesome. So, and I've heard that from other shop owners as well, that it's once they actually see it, they see how easy it is, and it's a lot less work for them. They don't have to type the story twice in 2 different softwares and click 2 different things and all that. They love it. So
yeah, I mean,
get those demos and try it. So
buy-in and change management, but we can do a whole nother, webinar on that. I suppose that's another, piece of the puzzle that's just more like people management, right? Making sure that everybody is in the right place to actually take on something like that. So it's good to hear that it's, been successful within your shop. And Jesse, just sort of to close out this section, similarly on the communication side of things, There's a lot of different things that go into, the payment processing within the organization itself, whether, who kind of is running it, where you're doing it, if you're doing it, remotely or, quote unquote contactless. And what have you seen as, kind of major developments over the past, 12, 14 months related to communication within the shop?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about text to pay. Last year with the pandemic, obviously a lot of these shops had their waiting rooms closed and weren't able to take payments in the shop. So text to pay, we had some shops saying that was the only way they were able to stay open. If they didn't have text to pay, they didn't know if they'd still be in business. So, those types of things where, some technology has been updated and helped them, has been a huge benefit for a lot of shops. But even communication within the shop, we have, some shops that are doing more of a concierge type of feel for their customers. And, they have a wireless terminal where they can, walk up to a customer sitting on a couch in the waiting room and they don't even have to get up. They come over, they sit next to them, they review the invoice with them, they have the terminal in their hand, they take a payment and they're good to go. So it's, again, it's how you want to interact with your customers, how you want to work with your team. But like Kurt said, if it's a good integration, it makes things easier for your team. So it's going to be pretty good to, pretty easy to get your team to buy into it. If you say, hey, this is what you're doing now, and it takes you 5 steps, where now it's going to take you 1 step or 1 click. So, as they, change is hard for everybody, but as they kind of start doing it, I think it's going to be a lot more efficient, a lot more easy for the people in the shop.
Sounds like it's a recognition, right? Like you need to understand, just obviously take a step back and understand, okay, how many steps is it taking today? What do I need to get that to? And who's the partner that I actually work with in order to get it to that point? I would assume that efficiency in the shop also relates to finding partners that, can help you out with that, because I'm sure we run the gamut on, at least on this webinar, of folks that, probably have the ability and the time to really scope out a bunch of providers, and those that are, turning wrenches and working on cars as much as possible. So, we're trying to provide, sort of that in the middle perspective of, you just have to look at your business as a whole to begin with. So whether you work with an SMS provider or your pen and paper right now, like you're going to want to get to that efficiency factor at some point. It's just a matter of those steps that you need to take. So let's go ahead and cap off this section, which is, specifically, Jesse and Kurt gave great examples, in the shop, what we're really working with when it comes to software and integrated technology. So another thought starter as we get to our next section, which kind of turns the tables a little bit, obviously, we have an interesting crew here where, our end user, Jesse and I, in a lot of cases is a little bit different, right? My end user on the Shop Boss side is Kurt, the person that runs the shop. Jesse's end user is a little bit of both. It's, the shop owner that needs to work with the payment processing hardware or software, but then also the customer, right? So we want to understand the communication for that particular perspective. How are they interacting with your business and your shop? So let me go ahead and launch this poll then. This is poll number 2. So what is the primary channel of communication between you and your customers? And we're just kind of interested to, sort of understand what are those mediums that are getting the most volume, the most inbound for your particular shop or your particular business. So let me keep this open for maybe about 10 to 15 seconds, and we'll get our next section kicked off with the customer facing perspective. Okay, maybe a couple more seconds. Everyone can get their votes in. Okay, let's go ahead and end it. I'm going to go ahead and end, and I'm going to share the results. So this one, granted 69% of the vote. Again, I don't think much of a surprise here. I may be curious to get Kurt and Jesse's thoughts on it. Phone obviously being number 1. I just feel like from everything that I've heard, text is, kind of the missing milestone for a lot of businesses right now, where it's like, we know we need it. We just don't really know how to go about it. Or we don't, it's kind of scary because we don't want to bombard people, but at the same time, we know it's important. And in-person walk-in, that's super interesting as well. I I guess that makes sense now. Things are kind of getting back to normal a little bit more, and then 0 for online chat. That's interesting as well. So Jesse, Kurt, before I get into kind of this section, any takeaways that you have from the poll or anything that you feel is interesting there?
No one's using online chat.
So I wonder if part of that is, maybe you don't have a website, right? So maybe you don't have the ability to chat with customers, which is fine. Like not every repair shop out there has to have their own website. We work with a number of, website providers like AutoShop Solutions, and they provide, they do integrations with online chat as well. But yeah, that's one that, maybe is right behind text in terms of like underutilized.
Yeah, I think for the online chat, in an auto shop, it might be harder to explain exactly what I need as a customer through a chat. So, online chats, are big on, tech companies and, more of the SaaS models, but I can see that it may be a little bit harder to adopt in an auto shop. But yeah, a phone totally makes sense. And then I expected text to be a little bit higher with DVI products and things like that. So I think that's definitely, something we can talk about.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and stop sharing here. So Kurt, I'm gonna kind of throw it over to you first here. So customer experience, obviously very important. It's been a concern not only in terms of the last 14 months and everything that every business has been through, but also in terms of how they're interacting with your shop, your software, all those other things. So what are those primary components on the customer side that you're really trying to solve for?
Can you repeat the last part of that? Sorry.
Yeah. So from a customer experience standpoint, customers interacting with your shop, what pain points are you trying to solve for? Are they experiencing friction in the process of, working with, you or your internal personnel? Are there breaks in the integrations that you have that are causing frustrations primarily on that side of the counter?
Yeah. So going back to that poll that was just up, the text I'm surprised it was as low as it was. For us, our customers love it. And it's a huge time savings going back to being efficient for us in the shop. You pick up a phone, you dial the number, you let it ring 5 or 6 times, you leave a voicemail, you wait however long for somebody to call you back. You miss the call because you're on the phone with somebody else and you have to call them back. So it's this big game. So the customers love the texting because we can just shoot them a text. They can text us back whenever it's convenient for them, if they're in a meeting or lunch, whatever they're doing, where they can't typically answer the phone, but this way we can still communicate back and forth and get the car done in a timely manner rather than waiting half a day to get back to them. So just the communication with the customer, just making it easy to get a hold of us and for us to get a hold of them, definitely is what we're trying to solve. Again, being efficient up front is just as important as being a technician that's being efficient with labor hours working on a car. So either way, either end of that shop, the front or the back, can really slow things down. So,
and it looks like, a fair amount of people, at least on this particular webinar, and maybe those that view it as a recording afterwards, maybe have not implemented any sort of texting component into their business yet. What would you recommend as kind of like easy first step into that? I know you guys use a DVI and you probably do a lot of texting through that. Jesse had mentioned that, but is there an easy step into it? Yeah,
no, a lot of shop management systems now, Shop Boss is one of them. You guys do have a texting feature that, it's just try it out. You'll be surprised, I think, at how many people are receptive to it and like it. And then not just the younger generation or the millennials or whatever, it's the older people as well. They love it. They text us. We have people tell us all the time that, they love that when Hannah sends them a message or whatever, they like seeing that. And, so it opens up to pictures and all kinds of stuff too, and videos that you can't do over the phone.
Yep.
So it makes it a little bit easier to explain things for people to understand as well. But it's, find an SMS that has it, find a DVI system. Most of them will have that now. You'll be surprised how easy it is and how much time it saves. So, and how well the customers actually enjoy it versus the phone. So,
and Jesse, are there any customer experience pain points that you guys really had to solve for on the payment side? As you're implementing, for instance, things like text to pay, like what problem are you really trying to solve there?
Yeah, text in general. I mean, Kirk hit the nail on the head. Like if you call somebody, a lot of times, especially nowadays, if on your cell phone, if a number that you don't know pops up, you're not answering it. And If you don't have the shop number in there and you aren't expecting a call necessarily or forgot about it, you may not answer that call, and then you have to get the voicemail and you start that back and forth. Texts, I read some stat where it's like within like under a minute, you get eyeballs on that text 90% of the time. The phone's in their pocket, you're going to get communication with the customer a lot faster. So whether it's the payment side at the end, or even just saying, hey, here's what we saw, you brought it in for an oil change, but we saw this, this, and this, that also needs to be done. Do we have your approval to do that work as well? You're not waiting an hour and a half to go back and forth and actually have a conversation with them. You can get an approval to start the job in 10 seconds instead of, an hour. So little things like that, are, adding efficiency through text or DVI and things like that. But on the payment side, the text to pay has solved a huge problem of just end of the day process for shops. If you're a busy shop and you close at, 5:30, between 5 and 5:30, when your customers are getting out of work and when you close your shop, can be a mad dash, and just people coming in, waiting in line, trying to get out the door, trying to take payments, trying to go over the job that you did. All that process is just cumbersome and frustrating for a shop. So with text to pay, it's made it so much easier where you can shoot a text off to them, the payment's off the table before they even walk into your shop. So literally all you have to do is hand them the keys and they're out the door. So what we've found is it streamlines that process, but the feedback that we've gotten from our customers, which are the shop owners, is that if they don't have to be talking about how are you going to pay me for this job, it opens up a whole new conversation. So they can build a better relationship with their customer. How are the kids? How's the wife? They can talk about, the next job that needs to be done. Hey, here's what we recommend doing next time. They can book more business. They don't have to deal with how you take that awkward kind of back and forth of like, you owe me $2,000 type of thing. It's already taken care of. Mm-hmm. So it's booking that next job and building a relationship.
And I have a stat for that. You were talking about the texting stat through our third-party DVI auto text me. It tells me when they open the inspection, when they click the link that's texted to them, and I can run a report. The average time it takes over those last 2 months for a person to open the link that was texted to them when I send it to them is 63 seconds. So within 63 seconds, they're opening that text message, clicking that link and looking at the report. And then it takes 2 minutes and 47 seconds on average for us to get a phone call from them after that. So that's taking what's normally a very long process into literally less than 3 minutes. They know what's wrong with the car. They have pictures. They know what it's going to cost. They know how to pay us. And it's just a simple, hey, yeah, we're going to do it, or no, we're not, or we're going to do this, this, and this. And you're done within 3 minutes. You're ready to rock and roll, order parts, and get the guys going. So that's huge.
That's a great stat.
Amazing, yeah.
For the folks that are on, this webinar particularly, that in itself is probably some good proof, because number one, if you're working with an SMS provider already, they probably already have some sort of text messaging system built in, right? Whether it's in your current package or an upgrade package, whatever, they probably have something. And then, like Kurt had mentioned, with DVI, you take it kind of to the next level, especially with inspection. So definitely something that is, again, I know I keep kind of mentioning underutilized here, but you probably already have access for it. You probably already paying for it in some capacity. So why not take advantage of it in this case? Get some training on it. But that's a great point that we can use as a takeaway. Yep. Okay. So if we're talking about, again, other side of the counter, customer, working with the shop, customer, maybe doing a payment or checking out an estimate or, whatever else. How does the software that you use internally really allow you to grow trust? So great stat about opening text messages. Obviously they're getting that and they're like, this isn't spam. This is something obviously that I've been waiting for and I have the time to reply to it right now. So that's a great example of something that helps you build trust. Any other examples, Jesse or Kurt, in this case, that really sort of ring true to you in terms of creating that trust factor with them?
On the DVI side, the pictures, I think, personally, when I take my car in, I've seen, where they say, hey, other stuff needs to be done. And here's a picture of your actual part and a real, a new part, and here's where you're at, or here's your tire depth and things like that. So the proof's in the photo type of thing. I think that builds huge trust.
Yeah, the goal of, we're the big bad auto repair shop, that's the reputation and stipulation out there. So just trying to build transparency, obviously, with the trust of the customer. So we try to be as transparent as possible with the DVI, those pictures, obviously, the texting, getting the people back in a timely manner, that helps with that. We go as far as we check tread depth on tires, but it's actually integrated into the DVI where they actually see a picture of the tread depth and what their tires actually look like. So there's integrations more than just, kind of DVI and ProDemand and that type of stuff. It can actually, tools can be integrated as well, so and that just helps build transparency, which builds trust with that customer. So.
Yeah, I just want to do a shout out here. So we just had a message come through from Jenny, shout out Buellton, mentioning key lockers that they use specifically so that they can do the text to pay after hours and customers can just come pick up their vehicles. So that's a really great, another, sort of convenience, transparency type element that could also build towards customer trust. So thanks, Jenny, for sending that note.
Yeah.
Quick little story on that. We had a customer that was saying, through the integration with text to pay and their DVI and their, not DVI, their SMS system, this guy had a car towed in the middle of the night. He had texted the customer and said, what's going on? What do we need? Got approval to do the job. The guy paid during text to pay, and then they put his keys in the lockbox and he picked it up at night. So he never even met or saw this customer and got paid, did the job, got approvals and everything without seeing or talking to the customer. And so like
25
kind of like blowing your mind.
Yeah, I would say 25 to 30% of our customers, we know who they are. We've met them at some point, but now that we have the key lock box, like they mentioned, which is a huge advantage, in the text to pay, we don't see them. It's all done. They drop it off before we get there or the night before. We do the work. We put the keys in the lockbox. We send them the link to pay. It's all done that way, and we literally don't see them for the repair. So and people are surprisingly okay with it and enjoy it. They like having the ability and the flexibility to drop the car off whenever they want, pick it up whenever they want, pay online, and not actually have to come in and use a credit card processor or PayCard or whatever they want to do. So it's just flexibility for the customer as well.
It's kind of amazing that we've gone from like this, when, us three, for instance, we're probably kids. We went from this like, don't talk to strangers type mentality to, and you guys have probably seen memes about this, to literally, I've only conversated with you online through text. I've never met you. You're taking care of my car, and I actually trust you more than I trust anybody else right now. So very, very strange. It's kind of ironic. I feel like we've gone to, but that's what technology does, right? It sort of enables the trust and transparency, effect. And obviously, if you're going to treat a customer the right way and your integrations are working together, you're going to get repeat business down the road as well. So great points.
There's a trust factor there, but it's also the professionalism. Like, it's easy for me to work with a shop that way. If you make it easy for me as a customer and everything works the way you say it's going to work, I trust you and I'm going to come back.
Yep.
And it's, that's a big thing, a big factor to it.
A lot of that comes down to the design of the products that the customers see. So when they get that 360 payment text to leak, or they get that estimate from ShopBoss, how it's laid out, how it looks, how easy it is for them to click everything, that plays a big role in that too. Because if that stuff is difficult or confusing or, doesn't work exactly right, people get fed up with it and don't do it. And then that's when they call you back 4 hours later when they get a chance. And now you've just wasted a ton of time. So
totally.
Yeah,
that plays a big part in it too, the user interface.
So to kind of bring home this section, then we'll move on to kind of our last piece. What are the pieces of the business? And we've already talked about a few of them, but what are the pieces of the business? What are the pieces of the software that create the highest percentage of customer satisfaction? Texting, DVI, payment processing. Like, we've sort of stumbled upon this sort of ghost customer conversation or ghost shy, whatever you want to call it, where we actually never meet the person, but we've taken care of them so well that we've been able to enable that. So, maybe start, Kurt, anything that you can think of off the top of your head that when it comes to customer satisfaction, whether the technology or the software is helping enabling it, it's really sort of knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, I don't think that you can really, at this point with where we are with integrations, you can really narrow it down to just one thing, or this one thing gives us the highest customer satisfaction. I think it's everything working together, and working smoothly and being easy to use for the customer, and then also with that, explaining to the customer beforehand, hey, this is how we do it. This is what to expect through this process. So they have a heads up, but everything, just all the different softwares working together is the key. So.
Yeah, I think cutting out steps, there's, just something as simple as a digital signature on the credit card terminal. Now you don't have to print out a receipt, hand it to them, have them find a pen, physically sign it, then hand it back to you, then staple a different copy. And now it's just you sign it and here's your paper and you're out the door. So like little things like that, I think, like Kurt, you're saying, like, it's not one thing, but it's a bunch of things together that are cutting out all these other steps and just streamlining your whole process. And after a while, it's just, you don't even think about it. It's just the new process and how it works. So yeah, I like that.
Great. Okay, moving into our last section here. This is my favorite section to talk about because it's all about, sort of what's next, what's upcoming. And especially since we have, Jesse and, Kurt kind of on the leading edge of this stuff, I think they have some really good content that they can put towards it. But last poll that we're going to take as our, kind of conversation starter, which is what integrated components are most vital to your business, your shop over the next 2 years. So let me go ahead and get that poll set up here and I'm going to launch it. So service and parts, this will be, integrations, obviously. Texting and customer communication, something that we've already talked about that it looks like, this particular crew is very well versed in, but the webinar participants, need that first step. And then lastly, something super interesting, accounting and payment processing. I know Jesse has a lot on the horizon for 360. So let's give this, a couple seconds here to kind of play out and see where we end up. This one looks like it's going to be a little bit closer, which is very interesting. And while that's finishing up, I just had one other point on the communication side of things, maybe a controversial opinion, but with sort of the way that technology convergence is working right now, text messaging and online chat, kind of the same thing, right? Because if you use iMessage, if you use, I'm not sure what the Android specific version of that is, but any sort of text messaging, you're sending multimedia, you're sending videos, you're sending pictures. Online chat is basically that. It's just you're not accessing it from someone's website. So that could be a kind of a factor in that as well, as far as the technology play and just sort of classifying two things as the same sort of communication pattern. Okay, let's go ahead and end the poll here. Okay, I'm going to share the results. So again, what integrated components are most vital to your shop over the next 2 years? Service is pretty close. Service and parts, 25%, texting and customer communication, 33%, accounting, and Jesse, you'll love that. The leader in the clubhouse at 42% for payment processing. That is awesome. So again, we'll kind of jump into the last section here, right? So voice of the shop, we already talked about, voice of the customer on the other side of the counter. So now what does the future sort of hold? And again, it's different. It's sort of this, large spectrum of businesses, right? Some might just be getting into text messaging. Kurt, on the other hand, they're looking at leading technologies and emerging technologies. So, we're trying to meet in the middle as much as we possibly can, but, maybe over to Kurt first, 90%, communication between your products internally. Where do you want to be in the next year? Where do you want your shops to be? Are there any additional pieces that need to be added to that, that lineup to really make sure that you guys are functioning where you need to be?
Yeah, I mean, there's always, it's pretty crazy to think how far we've come in just 5 years. So the next 3 to 5 years with technology that's out there and the capabilities we have, it's going to be pretty awesome to see. But there's, we're starting to get alignment machines that do the ADAS calibrations after the alignment, that type of stuff. There are some softwares that are starting to, you can have cameras in the stall, so it will detect the license plate of the car that the technician pulls in, and it will start a kind of a countdown, letting you know that, hey, that car is in the stall, it's being worked on. It started, he pulled it in at 10:13 a.m. and that's when he started working on it. He backed out at this time. And so you can keep track of efficiencies for the technicians of that side of the shop that way. So you don't even have to run reports anymore really in your SMS. It's all done right there. And then as far as the payments go, cryptocurrency and online stuff and all that, that's a huge market now that a lot of people are jumping on that never thought they would, as far as the investing in it and doing that stuff. And so as a shop owner, I want to make it as easy to take somebody's money as possible. So if that means that I need to start doing that and learning that, then I need to partner up with somebody who's going to be willing to kind of jump on that bandwagon and figure out a way to do that, so we can also take the money. So there's a lot to it, and I'm just pretty cool to see where we've come and what's to come. So.
Yeah, and how about, Jesse, obviously on the payment side, we'll talk in a minute here about sort of the emerging type of components on the payment side, but customers that you've talked to, what's the ideal state that we're trying to get to here?
Yeah, Kirk said it, is how can we make it easier for shops to get paid by their customers? And there's lots of different ways out there now that money can be transferred. There's the peer-to-peer payments, there's wearable technology, there's all these different things out there, Apple Pay, Google Pay, all these things. So, like all of our terminals can take Apple Pay, Google Pay, any NFC chip communication payments. So whether, you're, doing the text to pay and having it done before you get there, or somebody coming in, they don't even need to have their wallet. They just tap their Apple Watch to your terminal and it pays for it. So, those types of things, it's just making it as easy as possible to get paid. That's the end goal. And we're moving in a couple different directions on how we can keep improving that for shops.
And then just, sort of, this is opinion based, in this case, and it might be a little bit of everything, but, in your own personal opinions and the experiences that you've had within the market, with the customers you've worked with the partners, Jesse, that you've worked with, kind of how far ahead or behind do you sort of see the current aftermarket, right? The current software integration market for aftermarket is probably the best way to put that. Maybe Jesse, start with you in this one.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to say it's behind. I think it's catching up. There's, Kirk was saying, there's technologies out there that are streamlining a lot of different parts of the shop, with equipment being integrated and metrics and KPIs and all these things being super easy, automatically done. On a payment side of things, I think just the text to pay, everything being digital, everything being integrated. If your shop isn't using one of those, you need to catch up. We've had a lot of shops that, they've been in business for 20 years, for 50 years, and this is how we do it. This is how we've always done it. Well, you're going to get left behind. The problem is the shops that are super efficient and can push another 10 cars through their shop a day are gonna, and make it easier for their customers, are gonna start drawing customers because it's just ease of use. I haven't been in a grocery store in a year because I can click a button and they put it in my trunk or they deliver it to my front door. It's ease of use. I didn't go to that grocery store because I can get it at this one now. So same thing with the shops. I think as they, are growing and adopting some of this technology, you're going to get more business because you're making it easier for your customer.
Yeah, and Kat, I see your question that came through. I'm going to save that to the Q&A portion coming after, because I think it's important to talk through the text to pay side of things even a little bit more. But Kurt, just, your opinion on it, as far as, what do you think about what Jesse said? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, he's exactly right. I think as a shop owner side, as a whole, we're behind the times. I remember 7-8 years ago, my plumber would send me an invoice online and pictures of what was broken. And, in the automotive world, that wasn't even a thing back then. It wasn't even a thought. But why is my plumber and electrician doing it? That's kind of cool. Why aren't we doing that in the automotive world? But just to his point, yesterday we had a customer call and wanted to make an appointment. We explained our process, how we do things, the texting, the DVIs, the appointment reminder that he gets through our SMS system. And we weren't able to get to him nearly as quick as a couple other shops. But he said, man, you guys seem like you have your stuff together. This is pretty cool. I'm just going to wait and come to you guys. and so that puts you that much more ahead of the competition just by using stuff that makes your life easier. So I think as a whole, we're a little bit far behind as far as shop owners go, but I think we're making big steps. And it's not as scary as it seems. It's kind of the biggest thing I can tell shop owners is it's not, it seems like a lot, but it's really not. So
Yeah. You have to pick your pitches for sure.
Exactly.
Okay. So parting shots, the last question, that I have in this case is emerging software. So we know kind of the processes that we want to take. We know some of the things that we could probably tackle right now that are, maybe existing in ShopBoss, in my SMS, in my DVI. But maybe starting with Jesse, Text-to-Pay obviously has been huge in the market across many different shop management systems, but what's kind of on the horizon for the 360 side? What are you guys looking at for payment processing that is really going to be a driver?
Yeah, absolutely. A big thing we're working on and have just released is consumer financing. So being able to give that consumer an option to get instant financing if they are hit with a $2,000 bill and can't pay for it out of pocket. Showing that at the time of estimate, saying, "Hey, this is available for you." Those types of things are going to be really important, especially with the job market not being great and, some people being out of work may not have the funds available and they need their car. Those types of things are very important. So, so that's a big thing. But yeah, it's just in general, I think just getting the future different types of payments, like Kurt mentioned, cryptocurrency or peer-to-peer payments and things like that. We're looking into different options there and seeing again what type of currency, what type of way to pay, and making it all integrated into one process for the shop, just so any customer can pay them from anywhere at any time. That's like I said, that's the end goal.
Absolutely. And then Kurt, from your side, being the actual shop owner, being in it day after day, what's something that you're looking forward to or something that you think could really sort of solidify some of the software and processes that you already have in place?
Yeah. Being my background as a technician and then turning shop owner, I like to know stuff about the shop, efficiency of the guys in the back, how long a car is in there, how long, till we get our parts from when we order them, when they're delivered, that type of stuff all matters too, as far as the ultimate or the kind of the whole job and the car being done from start to finish. So softwares that can figure that out and kind of have that all included as well and integrated, I think is definitely cool. And I think it's on the horizon. So I'm looking forward to that. And then also on the payment stuff side, I want to be, like I said earlier, I want it to be as easy as possible to take somebody's money. So I want to work with somebody that's willing to do that stuff, willing to make changes and kind of keep up with the times. So yeah, absolutely.
It's a great point. I mean, one of the big things, at least on the ShopBoss side, and I think this would probably be true for a lot of shop management systems, is, the reporting, sort of the single view shop owner's view, right? We released something called Boss Board a few months ago, that sort of plays into that. We're trying to get into some of the forecasting, taking benchmark data and layering that in to see, how does your shop compare, some of the things that some of the coaching companies are doing out there right now. So there's a lot on the horizon, especially around reporting. And I think that's going to be a really interesting track to go down here eventually. So, okay, let's go ahead and jump into the Q&A. We only have a few minutes left. I want to make sure everybody can get back to their days and, go about their business to collect more money from their customers in some regard. So I'll start out with Kat's question actually for Jesse, that had come through because she was interested on the Text-to-Pay side. So she's asking, with Text-to-Pay, are you also able to email the work order and CC the receipt to the customer? And if so, what program is actually driving that?
Yeah, so depends on your shop management system. We integrate with, 35 different shop management systems now. And the texting and emailing is usually part of that system. So a lot of them have it built in where, on the Text-to-Pay, once you make a payment, it pops up right there and, gives you, your payment's been completed, and you can either put in your email address and email a receipt to yourself, or the shop, once, can email it to you from the shop, from the shop management system. So yeah, most of them do have a texting or an email feature that, because again, it just, if someone's in an office or if you have fleet accounts where you're working with other businesses, sometimes an accounting department is the one making the payment, and it's just going to be easier for them to do it through email on their computer. So a lot of them have both options.
Gotcha. And I think you've triggered people because there's some text to pay questions coming through. I'll throw one more at you and we'll see if it's getting too deep into the weeds. But Daniel asks, how does the chargeback work on text to pay since we don't have a signed receipt?
Yeah, so that's a question that comes up a lot. Visa MasterCard actually removed the requirement for signatures last year. So, I mean, if you really think about it, most people just scribble on the thing and no one actually compares signatures anyway. So signatures are not required for a chargeback. With text to pay, we tell all our shops just to make sure, text to pay is basically replacing a phone order. So if you wouldn't take that credit card over the phone, may not be an option to do, a good option to do over text to pay. I would set limits only, if you're only send out $1,000 or less over text to pay, and then I wouldn't do it for first time customers. So there is fraud out there. There is, fraudsters and things like that. Know your customer, know who you're sending it to, and and then text to pay can be a really big asset for you.
A lot of text to pay questions coming through. I'm going to put a pin in those and say we're going to provide a link where you can contact Jesse and 360 directly afterwards. Most of these are questions around, how do I utilize it best? A lot of that can be explained. So it's great to hear that, text to pay is getting so much play, especially with how prevalent it's been in the market over the past 14 months or so. So let me jump into another question here. And I think we brought up, there's a few that came through about reporting, and I think it might be good for us to maybe go down that road for a couple minutes as we sort of finish up here. And maybe this is one to go over to Kurt first as, owner operator. What custom reports are you using to measure revenue and efficiency?
So there's KPIs, and that's going to vary from business to business, but obviously, one of the main things is efficiency. So how long are my techs clocked in versus how many hours are they flagging, labor percentages, parts percentages, overall ticket GP, average repair order cost, or the total average repair order, how many cars a month are coming in. So those are kind of the main ones I look at that can kind of tell you a lot about what's going on within the business. But I know, like with ShopBoss, there's a lot of reporting in there. So if you need to dig deeper into a certain situation that you're finding, like, hey, my parts margin was low this month. What happened there? Well, you can really run another report and kind of really dig in deep into the parts and what you had that month and figure out why it was low. Was it just one oddball thing, or was it a couple different tickets that an advisor was messing up on? Whatever the case was. So kind of having the ability to have a 5,000 foot view, and then also the ability to really kind of dig down into it and pinpoint an issue that you do find. So,
and Jesse, anything to add on the reporting side of things? I mean, customers ask about their payment processing reports, all the time, kind of depending on what system that they're using. Anything that you're seeing as a trend, in the market that could pique the interest of some of the attendees today?
Again, the efficiency. Previously, when you had the payments unintegrated, you had to print off a batch report, a settlement report, and then go to your shop management system, print off your daily report there, and then compare them and make sure everything matched up. When your terminal is part of your shop management system, the report that comes out of your daily report is your batch report. So you don't need it. It eliminates that whole end of day second process of comparing. Everything's already combined on the report. The only way to run a transaction is through the SMS system, so everything matches up every time. So those types of things have kind of streamlined it and made the reporting a lot easier.
Got it. So just to kind of finish up here, we've gone through obviously kind of our three big ones, right? What's going on in the shop, what's going on the other side of the counter with the customer, what's going on, with future and emerging technologies. So want to kind of, give you guys a chance to kind of give closing statements, right? When it comes to, integrated software, what you're using on a daily basis or developing in Jesse's case, what are some of the things, or what's the one thing, that you would give as a major takeaway for somebody to be successful, a shop maybe on this webinar, to be successful ultimately with their software? What's the kind of the first step that they can take forward to, from today's webinar to really put some of that success into motion? Maybe Jesse, let's start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on my side, it's get your payments integrated. If you're still not integrated to your shop management system, the main thing is you want to make sure your payment processor, you have a relationship with them, you have good customer service, you can call them. So that's a big piece of it. Having that also be integrated where it streamlines the whole process in your shop is a huge thing. So if we're happy to review that with anybody, and really kind of show you why we've been so successful with shops. But that's really what I would say is make sure that you have a processor that you trust, and that it flows and is integrated with your system at your shop.
And Kurt, any closing remarks from yourself on the integration side?
Yeah, I mean, Jesse's right too. It's the heart of a shop is going to be the shop management system, the SMS. So find one that works for your shop, with your employees, with your staff. Make sure it's one everybody can use. And then once you have that, start looking out at other softwares that connect and integrate with that. Most of them, any decent SMS system will have a list of who they integrate with, and ask them during a demo, who do you guys integrate with for payment processing, for DVIs, for CRMs, for websites, for just a ton of things that integrate with them now. So do your research, get some demos, and that's really it. It's you got to do it if you're not doing it now. So
excellent, thank you for that. Closing things up for today, kind of final call to action. I know there were a lot of questions that came through about text to pay and a few other things. There were some questions, I'm sure, on the shop management side. Do you want to enable text marketing or text messaging, DVI, all these different things? So we did provide a couple links that you can follow here, depending on, kind of where your interest is most peaked. Shopboss.net/webinar. You can go to that page. You can, schedule a demo. We're actually putting an offer out there as well, as, we're going to give you $25 for a demo that you schedule and complete with our team, just to go through that process. So want to make sure that you're taking advantage of that as much as you possibly can. And then for 360, Jesse also has a landing page where you can reach out, ask questions. They work with a lot of different providers. It's not just ShopBoss, but obviously we have a very strong partnership. We've pioneered a lot of different integrations in the market. So if you're interested on that side, definitely go to 360payments.com/webinar. As I close it out, I want to say thanks again, Jesse, Kurt, thanks for joining, providing all your different expertise on everything related to software integrations. Thanks to all the attendees that jumped on today. Hopefully you got, a little nugget that you can take away with you and actually put into motion at your shop or within your specific business. But again, any questions that you have along the way, go to those websites, ask for us, check it out. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Nora, who's going to close us sort of logistically, but I hope everyone else enjoys the rest of your day, and thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yes. And we also just got a question come in about finding this webinar later online, which you definitely can. We've been recording and we'll pop it up on ratchetwrench.com. We'll also have both of those links right on that page, so you can learn more about 360 Payments and ShopBoss. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Yeah.